We're going to welcome Michael and Bonnie Garvin to the program. Hi, folks. Welcome to the show.
Hello again.
And you've got a renewable energy business,
Yes.
and it's got the word Caribbean in it, which always I figured we'd have a little marimba band or something to kick off the conversation. But tell us the name of the business and the Caribbean connection.
Well, the Caribbean connection is the Caribbean Renewable Energy Consortium. And we formed it 2 years ago because we were looking for a laboratory in which to try out new renewable energy technologies. And we were invited down to Curacao, which is in the south part of the Caribbean, and we were warmly welcomed there and have been engaged throughout the Caribbean testing emerging technologies, first there, kind of off-Broadway, and then bringing them back into Europe, China, in the United States.
And what kind of technologies are we talking?
Oh, it's all the whole range. Wind, as Newton knows, and
Newton has done very well with wind.
yes, they have.
We're getting there.
Yeah.
Solar, a lot of storage technologies, from thermal fuel cell to sodium storage to lithium storage. Hydrogen hybrid systems. We're now looking at a lot of tidal wave energy coming out of Europe.
Yeah, and these aren't, you don't have to wait around for a tsunami. These are
No.
the regular old tidal,
Yeah.
the tides themselves.
Yeah, they're basically like wind turbines, but they go underneath the ocean, are moored there, and they're compatible with ocean life, but produce electricity. So we're looking at electric cars with solar-based charging stations. We work with Tim Dwight, who's a football player from
I know Tim. Yeah.
Iowa and
He's
NFL.
been on this
And
program before.
yeah, okay. Tim is a big advocate of solar, and he's helping put together our solar packages in the Caribbean in conjunction with a Chicago-based company called New Generation Power, which is a well-financed, good experienced company, putting in 3 megawatts of energy at the University of Virgin Islands, 315 megawatts in India, 500 megawatts in Brazil, but they're coming into the Caribbean in a very, very big way. So we're in conjunction with them.
So is this an effort to provide renewable energy to that region, partially, and is it? I understand the other part is to, is a good environment to refine some of the technologies that can be available elsewhere. Do I have that right?
Yeah, that's pretty accurate, wouldn't you say, Bonnie?
Yes, that's true. I mean, we've been doing this for a few years now, and it's hard starting anything new, and so anywhere that's fertile ground to try new things, that's great. Then you have a success in your hands, and you can take it elsewhere. So they've been interested, and we've had a good relationship, especially in Curacao.
Maybe pick one example of one of the successes you've had.
I'd say the hydrogen hybrid systems.
Okay.
Hydrogen hybrid systems come out of work done by a gentleman by the name of Jeff Sheeran. And Jeff Sheeran's I consider one of the premier emerging technology designers. He's done a lot of work, but Sheeran's developed a technology that is a hydrogen hybrid. It produces from distilled water, produces about a gallon of hydrogen, gaseous hydrogen a minute. And PepsiCo decided to put that equipment on their trucks, 178 of their trucks, and experienced about a 15% reduction in consumption of fuel, and reduced emissions by about 82%. So you got a win-win situation. Now that's an incumbent technology, and that's still using diesel, still using fossil fuels,
right,
but in a safer way that we can transition to completely carbon-free technologies like solar and wind and tidal.
Right. I think it's wonderful what's happening down there, and it's important for us to, of course, focus on the elimination of greenhouse gases and what that does for the environment and so on. But I know in my community, the main impact that most folks are interested in is the jobs that are created by renewable energy. Could you talk a little bit about some of the jobs that have been created by these efforts?
Well, that's the interesting thing. By partnering with New Generation Power and their subsidiary Very Own Energy, they have enough financial clout and university-based knowledge that they're putting together programs for training technicians to install solar, to maintain solar, wind, tidal technologies. They're looking at putting in a medical school in the Caribbean that's sorely needed in the Caribbean with the health problems that they have in the 35 million people there. We're looking to do similar kinds of things with hydrogen hybrid systems. We can retrofit 15,000 ocean-going vessels that they could comply with the EPA Tier 1, or the Tier 3, Tier 4 EPA requirements coming into U.S. ports by the year 2016. All those ships have to be retrofitted. They don't have to be retrofitted in Rotterdam. They can be retrofitted in Curacao and Wilhelmstad or in St. Thomas, and there's hundreds, if not thousands, of jobs just retrofitting to hydrogen or to other fuel sources. A lot of work to be done. So the opportunities are there.
And the switch to clean, renewable energy is good for our economy.
Oh, absolutely.
And it's not holding us back. It is not setting us back. It's
great
moving
job.
us forward.
So in terms of applications here in Iowa, in terms of possible, to play off what Dan said, employment here in Iowa, what are we looking at here?
Technicians, and we've got some good schools that University of Iowa, Iowa State, the community colleges are incredible in producing technicians. You just saw a large investment of Mid-American Energy into wind again here.
Another one, yep.
Yeah, another one. This isn't their first. This isn't their first rodeo.
Right.
So you got a situation where you got a need for a lot of technicians in wind. Now we're looking at distributed generation.
And I was just going to ask about that, because that's so important to try to make sure that everybody has a piece of this pie. It's a great opportunity, but if it's all controlled by one entity, it's the economic opportunity is just not going to be there.
Well, there's the rub. We've had a social contract with utilities for 80 years. And what we told them as a society that they could have basically a guarded monopoly on energy delivery, as we did with the railroads years ago. Now the times have changed, but they still are going to be a partner. So my message is that the incumbent has a part to play. There's money to be made by private utilities, such as Alliant and Mid-America, in a distributed generation world. They can buy equipment that we're bringing together. They can lease it to customers.
But Michael, they want to make all the money. That's the problem. I mean, we saw Iowa City make an effort to try to move toward municipal utility not too many years ago, and Mid-American led the charge against that.
Well, that's why we're working in the Caribbean, Ed. The Caribbean allows us to try different financial models. Right now, Mark Jacobson, who is at Stanford University, is doing some incredibly important things, with a project called Solutions Project. And what they're doing is they're showing states like New York and California, and ultimately Iowa, because they're going to do the entire United States, do an assessment of how they can go within 15 to 30 years to all renewable, sustainable energy. The March for Climate Change is very, very important. It is the first time in history that we will have a social dynamic leading a technological change. If you take a look
I've never thought of it that way.
It's incredible.
But,
if you take a look at the Stone Age,
Right.
they did not stop the Stone Age because they ran out of stones. Did not happen. Bronze was invented, and they went on to technology. If you take a look at the Renaissance, it was the technologies that were developed for shipping and transport by ocean and water that made that difference. The Industrial Age, with the creation of the steam engine, that was brought by technological change. Digital Age, everything we did with Texas Instrument and the space program. For the first time in the history of humankind, we will be seeing a social change dynamic exemplified by the March next year.
And one thing we want to do in this March is showcase the technologies that you're working on, that so many other good people are working on. We have somebody offering to supply a mobile wind generating unit.
Absolutely.
We're looking at parabolic solar cookers. We're looking at ways of dealing with waste that involve not just tossing it on the ground or in a landfill, but actually composting it. So many things. I mean, a lot of this stuff still has the kinks to be worked out, but back to employment, there's so much opportunity here when it comes to the jobs that can be created through these new technologies. So the March is not just people walking across the country. It's showcasing the things we need to be doing to deal with climate change. And I like how you said it, a social movement leading a technological revolution.
First time in the history of humans.
And I would also add too that we have been encouraged in our company. It's kind of difficult working in this field, but we feel like there's lots of people who have a lot of passion and a lot of interest, as well as technologies. But we're all kind of islands sitting around. And I always say, we say we need to connect the dots. Then it's really going to happen. So I think the climate march will do a lot to bring all those dots rolling across the country with them. A lot of education and enthusiasm will come along with that.
As I understand from our marcher director, Zach Heffernan, you both are considering signing on to the march next year.
And speaking, so we're talking.
Yeah, well, we'd love to have. I mean, we don't quite have the educational component figured out yet because it's going to depend on who signs up, who participates, and what kind of skills and passions and abilities you have. But I think this message would be one that would be very well received throughout the march. So I hope you do the whole darn thing. Anyway.
I'm a school psychologist, so I have to be at work sometimes.
Yeah, sometimes. Well, we probably need a psychologist on the march too. Some of us might go crazy.
We've already looked at the route. We said, we have to be here and here and here and here.
Yeah, well, just if you march through Newton, make sure you gotta make sure that you recognize that Dan is king for the day.
Absolutely, wonderful.
Nick Kellogg, that's my leg.
That's his leg.
All
Well,
right.
it's interesting, Dan, because there's a technology company that is basically a valveless engine, and they said, why don't we run at NASCAR tracks sometime?
Sure.
And just to show the power and the fuel reduction needs. And I said, I'll tell you, I know a track in Newton.
Iowa Speedway. Not
Yeah.
good.
5 races
Well,
a
on
summer.
that note, that's a great segue into my final promotional clip. Michael, Bonnie, I really appreciate you taking the time to join us. I hope you can be a part of the march next year as well, and maybe we can get you back on this program to talk about some other aspects of what you're working on. It sounds very interesting.
Be glad
and very
to.
relevant.
Anytime.
Good to meet you.
Hey, again, folks, thanks to Dan Kelly for being our guest